right. Today we're going on a journey back to the very cradle of civilization, to a land where you could say history itself was born. We're heading to that fertile crescent, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, to uncover the epic story of Mesopotamia.
So let's just dive right in. And you got to understand, this isn't just some dusty old history. This is basically the origin story of our world. Right here, in this land between two rivers, is where humanity first decided to build cities, write down laws, and create empires. So much of our modern world, the good and the bad, it really has its roots in this ancient saga of blood, mud, and glory.
So who are the architects of this brand new world? Well, it all starts with the Sumerians. I mean, these people made an incredible leap, a quantum leap really, from prehistory to history, all thanks to an invention that would change absolutely everything: writing. Their breakthroughs laid the groundwork for civilization as we know it.
Okay, so take a look at this timeline. The pace of change here is just wow. It's mind-blowing. I mean, for thousands and thousands of years, you have slow progress, scattered little settlements. And then, all of a sudden, bam! An incredible acceleration. In just a few thousand years, they go from these first little villages to mastering irrigation, then to working with metals, and finally to building the world's first actual cities. It was a complete explosion of innovation.
Think about it. Building a city like Uruk with 50,000 people living in it, that's a massive achievement. But here's the catch. With this new level of organization, you get a whole new scale of conflict. These powerful new city-states were just constantly fighting each other for land, for water, for dominance. It's a paradox that would pretty much define the rest of history.
So all this fighting between cities, it set the stage for a totally new idea. For the really ambitious rulers, just controlling one city wasn't going to cut it anymore. They started dreaming bigger, of something that would completely change this whole landscape of warring city-states forever.
And this is where the whole idea of an empire even comes from. It was pretty much invented by one guy, Sargon of Akkad. See, he wasn't happy just ruling over his own people. He went out and, through pure conquest, united all these different cultures under his command. He forged the world's very first multinational empire, and he held it together with the world's first professional army. Now, Sargon's idea was a game changer for sure, but here's the problem. An empire held together purely by military force, it's super fragile. And sure enough, when the Akkadian Empire eventually crumbled, a new power, Babylon, rose up from the ashes, and its king had a completely different vision for how to create unity. 282, what's so special about this number? Well, it's the key to understanding the genius of a Babylonian king named Hammurabi. He got it. He knew that an army alone couldn't hold a diverse empire together. He needed something else, a shared system, a common code that would actually bind all his different people together.
And this was it, the Code of Hammurabi. Now, these 282 laws, carved right into stone for everyone to see, were a completely revolutionary idea. Before this, justice was, all over the place. It depended on the whims of whatever local ruler you had. Hammurabi created a single written legal standard for an entire empire. Now, it also tells us a lot about their society. Justice was definitely not equal. The punishment you got depended heavily on your social class. But it was a huge step toward a society held together by law, not just by the sword.
Okay, so after Babylon's first great empire fell, Mesopotamia gets thrown into this whole new era of conflict. And the next big power to step onto the stage, the Assyrians, well, they had a very different philosophy. They decided to build their empire not on law, but on pure, calculated fear. And they perfected warfare with a terrifying efficiency. And listen to this. This is a direct quote from the Assyrian king Ashur-Nisir-Pal II. It's pretty chilling. For the Assyrians, this kind of brutality wasn't just a side effect of war. It was a deliberate tool of the state. They perfected psychological warfare, and they even carved these horrific scenes onto their palace walls as a warning to anyone who even thought about defying them. And their war machine was something else, a total force of terror. They were the first to use iron weapons on a massive scale, and they developed these incredible siege engines that could break down pretty much any city wall. Their policy was simple: submit, or we will completely destroy you. It was this powerful mix of military dominance and psychological terror that made them the most feared empire of their time. But here's the thing about an empire built on fear: it's built on sand. When the Assyrian Empire finally, inevitably collapsed, its old rival Babylon rose from the ashes in the most spectacular way imaginable. Under Nebuchadnezzar II, the city became a wonder of the ancient world, famous for its incredible Ishtar Gate and the mythical Hanging Gardens. This time, it was an empire of splendor, proving that creation can be just as powerful as destruction.
So let's just recap for a second. We've seen brute force from the Akkadians, we've seen law from the Babylonians, and straight-up terror from the Assyrians. We've watched these different models of empire rise and fall, and this whole relentless cycle of conquest, it brings up a really big question. Does building an empire always have to be brutal?
For thousands of years, the history of Mesopotamia seemed to answer that question with a loud, clear yes. But then, just as the new Babylonian Empire started to weaken, another power was rising in the east, Persia. And its visionary leader was about to offer a completely different answer to this age-old question. Enter Cyrus the Great. He was a conqueror, yes, but he was unlike anyone Mesopotamia had ever seen. His campaign started with a military victory, of course, but what he did after the battle, that's what changed everything. Instead of the usual slaughter and destruction, he showed mercy. He respected local customs, local religions, and he even helped rebuild what his predecessors had torn down. And this right here was just brilliant politics. When Cyrus took Babylon, he didn't march in as a foreign invader. No, he presented himself as a liberator, someone chosen by Babylon's own chief god, Marduk. He let exiled people, like the Jews, go back to their homelands and rebuild their temples. By framing conquest as liberation, he built a stable, multi-ethnic empire on a foundation of tolerance that was totally unheard of at the time. Okay, so after 3,000 years of all this drama, cities rising, kings fighting, empires crumbling, what's left? What's the big takeaway from Mesopotamia? How do the echoes of this ancient world still affect our lives today? Well, take a look at this. Their legacy is literally everywhere. The very idea of writing, the thing that lets us record our history and share knowledge, it started there. The wheel, which totally changed transportation and machinery, Mesopotamian. And get this, the reason we have a 60-minute hour and a 360-degree circle, that's their base 60 math system still at work. From our laws to the way we look at the stars, we are all heirs of Mesopotamia. So you see, Mesopotamia isn't some far-off, dusty chapter in a textbook. It's the foundation of our world. The story of this ancient land is, in so many ways, the first chapter of our own story. The people who lived between those two rivers really did build the world we live in now, with all its amazing achievements and all its messy problems. And that makes you think, doesn't it? Thousands of years from now, when people look back on our time, what are they going to see as our contribution to this long, unfolding story of civilization? What will our legacy be?